Early October 2025 was a dark chapter for Uttaradit province in northern Thailand, when heavy rains triggered by the remnants of Tropical Storm Bualoi lashed the region for days. The storm, which initially formed over the Pacific Ocean, moved westward, weakening as it crossed Laos, but still brought a moist air mass that triggered extreme rainfall in northern Thailand. Recorded rainfall of more than 250 millimeters in 72 hours caused the Nan River and its tributaries to overflow, inundating homes, farmland, and vital infrastructure in Uttaradit. The flooding began on October 1st, when the rains persisted and river levels rose dramatically. By the morning of October 2nd, water began entering homes in Laplae, Tron, and the Pla districts. The main road connecting Uttaradit to Phitsanulok was cut off by floodwaters as deep as 1.5 meters. Thousands of residents were forced to evacuate to higher ground, while others chose to remain in their homes in the hope that the water would soon recede. However, those hopes were dashed when heavy rains returned that night, worsening the flooding. The Uttaradit provincial government immediately declared a state of emergency and deployed rescue teams comprised of military, police, and civilian volunteers. Evacuations were carried out using rubber boats and heavy vehicles, targeting the elderly, children, and people with disabilities. Evacuation posts were set up in schools and village halls, complete with public kitchens, health services, and logistics distribution. However, significant challenges arose as access to several villages was completely cut off, forcing rescue teams to use helicopters to reach remote areas such as Ban Den Chat and Ban Den Kra Thai. According to a report from the Thai Department of Disaster Management, DDPM, the flooding in Uttaradit was part of a series of hydrometeorological disasters that struck 27 provinces in Thailand during early October. Nationally, more than 60,000 people were affected, with 7 fatalities recorded as of October 3rd. In Uttaradit itself, 2 people were reported missing after being swept away by the current while trying to cross a swollen river. Search and rescue teams continue to search along the banks of the Nan River. Beyond the human toll, the economic impact of the floods was significant. Thousands of hectares of agricultural land, particularly rice paddies and orchards, were inundated. Farmers in fact the Nam Pat districts reported significant losses, with crops ready for harvest completely destroyed. Infrastructure such as bridges, village roads, and irrigation channels also suffered severe damage. The central government promised aid and rehabilitation funds, but the recovery process is expected to take months. The floods also reignited public discussion about disaster preparedness and the impacts of climate change. Meteorologists from the Thai Meteorological Department, TMD, stated that extreme weather patterns have become more frequent in the past 5 years, with shorter rainy seasons but much higher rainfall intensity. Dr. Chaiwat Ekawatpanit, a hydrologist from King Mongkut's University of Technology Thonburi, emphasized the need for an artificial intelligence, AI-based early warning system capable of predicting floods more accurately and quickly. According to Dr. Chaiwat, AI technology can process rainfall, soil moisture, and topography data to produce precise flood simulations. He stated that the current conventional system is still too slow and unable to reach remote areas. The Thai government has begun piloting this system in several provinces, but it has not yet been widely implemented in Uttaradit. Amidst the crisis, community solidarity is a key strength. Residents not directly affected are working together to help their neighbors, providing food, clothing, and temporary shelter. Social media is being used to disseminate information about evacuation sites, logistical needs, and current conditions. Some local influencers are even raising funds to help flood victims, demonstrating that social responsibility remains alive amidst the disaster. Although the waters began to recede on October 5th, the post-flood challenges remain significant. Mud and debris washed ashore have piled up on streets and in people's homes. The risk of diseases such as diarrhea, leptospirosis, and skin infections has increased, forcing health authorities to disinfect and distribute medicines. Schools used as evacuation centers have not yet been able to reopen, disrupting the teaching and learning process. The Uttaradit provincial government promised to expedite the rehabilitation process, including infrastructure repairs, direct cash assistance for farmers, and the construction of permanent embankments in flood-prone areas. However, many residents are skeptical, as previous experience has shown that these promises often fall short of fulfillment. Several NGOs and civil society organizations have begun pushing for transparency in the use of aid funds and citizen involvement in the rehabilitation planning process. The massive flood that struck Uttaradit in early October 2025 was a devastating natural disaster that disrupted the lives of local residents. Extreme rainfall triggered by the remnants of Tropical Storm Bualoi caused the Nan River and its tributaries to overflow, inundating settlements, agricultural land, and critical infrastructure. Thousands of residents were affected, many forced to evacuate, and access to several villages was completely cut off. Although the waters began to recede within a few days, the social, economic, and psychological impacts of the floods remain profound. Socially, the floods caused deep trauma for many residents, especially children and the elderly. Several communities experienced dislocation, and social structures were disrupted by the displacement of residents. Uncertainty about the government's promises regarding the rehabilitation process also fueled public skepticism. Economically, the losses suffered by farmers were enormous, as thousands of hectares of agricultural land were completely destroyed. Community incomes have plummeted, and local economic recovery is expected to take a long time. Damaged infrastructure, such as bridges and irrigation channels, requires significant repairs, which will burden local and central government budgets. Infrastructure-wise, this flood highlights the need to build more disaster-resistant drainage systems and embankments. Regional spatial planning must be reevaluated to prevent settlements from growing in flood-prone areas. Furthermore, expanding emergency communication and transportation networks is a priority to reach remote areas during disasters. Policy-wise, this flood provides momentum to accelerate the implementation of technology-based early warning systems, including artificial intelligence and hydrological sensors. The government needs to revise development policies to be more adaptive to climate change and involve communities in the planning and monitoring of rehabilitation. Environmentally, the flood-damaged river and wetland ecosystems and increased the risk of waterborne and vector-borne diseases. Sludge and debris carried by the current accumulated in streets and homes, worsening sanitation and public health. The flood also offers important lessons about the importance of public education. Many residents are unaware of evacuation procedures, shelter locations, or how to survive during floods. The government and educational institutions need to incorporate disaster preparedness into school curricula and community training. Uttaradit is now entering the recovery phase, but the wounds left by the floods will not heal easily. Damaged homes, crop failures, and the psychological trauma left by residents pose long-term challenges. However, beneath the receding waters lies hope for a future that is more resilient, better prepared, and more equitable in the face of disasters. The October 2025 floods will be remembered as a turning point if the government and community truly learn from them.